Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Top Cyber Pro podcast. I'm founder and CEO Jim West. Got a great guest today, John. Let me get your last name right. It is Salisbury, correct?
That's correct. Like the old TV dinners.
Like the old TV there, Salisbury. So, John is the CEO and founder of multiple companies, which we're going to kind of dissect all of those real quickly, talk about the why these companies exist. One of them is pretty cool because we're talking about a big 7 foot iPhone. So he's going to talk a little bit about that. In fact, let's first start off with John. Tell us a little bit about you and what the various hats and titles you wear and what really makes you tick, man.
Man, I love the energy. That's awesome. So thank you for having me on. The I guess I guess I get up in the morning and my number one thing when I start off in the day is how can I be helpful today?
I like
To
it.
the most amount of people. And to do that, I usually try to work on myself considerably with physical activity, mental practices like meditation and so forth, and mantras, and
Hmm.
then show up and make impact. If I'm going to show up somewhere, then I want to have high energy and impact. I don't want to show up and like bring a negativity towards a situation that's just bad for everybody. And then from there, then I try to be strategic and work in ways that not necessarily everyone else is. So if I see a school of fish swimming in a certain way in a certain pattern, I definitely try to figure out where they're going. And I try to get there first, and then from there, I try to help that school. So I know it's coming. So I try to it's picks and shovels, but I'm trying to do that in different ways to help prepare that school and be helpful to the group when it arrives. And there is competition in there, but usually I'm trying to swim with people, not against them.
Well, that's a good analogy, particularly with this whole school of fish swimming towards AI and the solution sets and the advancements of AI. But before we go down the AI topic rabbit hole, let's talk about some of the businesses because you got a great list of companies here that you founded, that you run. So let's start with probably one of the most interesting ones, Rove IQ. What is the why and the mission of Rove IQ? And let's talk about these gigantic iPhones.
So I'll just say like I have a weird trajectory in education. Both my parents are teachers, so I actually um s- dropped out of high school to go play professional volleyball in California and sand volleyball, and actually made it on some AVP qualifier events and toured for a while. Came back, started a restaurant, failed at that, like because every
What cuisine
failed
was
volleyball
it?
player at 19, 20, what's the what?
What was the cuisine? What was the food menu like?
We did it was a mix. It was actually really cool. My old coach has actually came up with a concept. There's a place in Cincinnati called Dewey's Pizza, which is wood fire pizza and like higher end pizza. And then we also had this big restaurant chain, which was precursor to Panera Bread called Big Sky Bread. So what we did is we made our own breads, like super high end. So I'd go in at like 4:30 in the morning and just prepare the breads. And then we'd made like super gourmet sandwiches. And then at night we'd shift over into that like high end pizza kind of wine location. We had five. I was 20 when I started these. We had five. All of them failed.
Oh, wow.
But
The
they all
fact that you
ran
were
for a
so
while.
young and you had 5 locations, that's just mind-blowing. So
We
again, at a young
Yeah, it
age,
was
you was
crazy.
already an impact player, right? You just come on and just make a huge impact. So not to
Hustle.
digress from the point, but so Rove IQ, what was the why for making gigantic iPhones?
Okay, so this is a bit of a story. So Nexogen had started after this, after the restaurants had failed. Nexogen had started. We're on our way, and we realized cybersecurity kind of grew around us because we were hosting websites, and we had we did a compute utility computing provider center for Nexogen back in 2003, kind of a VMware competitor. That's what we thought when we were young, stupid kids without money and as much funding. But the when we were at Nextgen, when cybersecurity was growing, we needed to offer more capability sets to our customers, and it was hard to find talent. So I had watched this like Netflix series on the coach who found LeBron James and started recruiting him in high school. And I was like, what a good idea. So we built what's called Tech Defenders, which is a high school education program. And in that high school education program, we were trying to find people that would come and work for Nextgen, like the talent, and then get them to college. And we already had started working with Northern Kentucky University and some of the other bigger universities in Cincinnati, like UC, with their cyber defense teams and coaching them, and then working with the coaches. The coaches had worked for me, so we just took that same model, took it down to high school, and staged them for college, where they land with our coaches, and then they'd feed our cybersecurity pipeline. So as we were doing that, I live in our offices are in Newport, Kentucky, which is not a that's not like a super high end location with millionaires every 5 feet, but it's not like
I like
impoverished,
the
but there
other
are
Newport.
Yeah, exactly. But there's not like there's a mix of population, very diverse economic conditions. And in the high school at Newport specifically, there was the team that we had was around 12 players, and one of the kids was an all-star, the best kid. And we were told at one of our, it was like our seventh weekend, that this student was not going to be allowed to participate any longer. Now, this school had just done a one-to-one program where they had, that year they had released, they got a grant, all the MacBooks came in, and then they did everything digital, so no more paper. However, that student didn't have internet and couldn't afford it at his house.
Oh,
So he couldn't complete his homework, and the businesses weren't allowing him to go in to use Wi-Fi, and the school was closed. So he literally had a problem getting work, not because of attitude or hustle or anything like that. He just didn't have access. So that was complete digital inequality hit us. When that problem happened, we basically convinced the school we had a great superintendent. We convinced the school to do a survey to see if the problem was micro or macro. So we got every student basically is that we could get on the survey came in and did the basically filled out basically where they anonymously kind of where they lived, and we were able to get if they had internet or not, and we were able to find out that this like one section of Newport that's kind of like near my office was like almost entirely blacked out from internet.
wow.
It was actually 33% of the student population did not have access to internet. They didn't know that before they did a one-on-one program. So we contacted the local ISP, which is one of the old Ma Bells, Cincinnati Bell, and said, "Hey, could you guys run fiber to these locations? We've mapped out where access points could go in the city, and then these kids could get access to internet at their house." So from there, they all said no at first, and then we said, "Well, what's the cost?" And after we did the kind of design build, we helped them out with it and so forth. It came out to around $2 million. So we just simply asked, like, what is your ROI on this? And they said 10 years. So when you break down $2 million over 10 years, and then you divide that by the number of customers with an average bill of around $250 per month, it comes out to somewhere around 150 customers. So we held a town hall meeting in Newport with all the businesses and signed up 150 customers in one night, and that project got completed, which
Wow.
means we solved the digital inequity problem. Okay. We did a press release because we were so excited about this. And then the CIO of New York City calls me and says, "Can you do that here?" And I'm like, "I don't think you realize Newport's not the same thing as New York City. It's different problems." However, it challenged us to see if we could come up with a solution. So what we decided to do was use advertising. Was these Link NYC was starting to come out. We were in the same time frame, and there's these 8 foot tall iPhones all over New York generating revenue, which basically allows you to basically control where the fiber goes, control content, virtual ambassador for the city, and then three, build that revenue stream for those digital inequity and inequality
Wow.
projects. And that's where we started off as SmartLink, was our piece, and we have, I mean, it's 1,000 or so around the country, and they generate revenue, and we split that with cities, and we're helping cities all over the country. It's freaking amazing. It's very
Well,
cool.
make sure you give me some links to like the pictures or the websites, and I'll make sure they're in the description below because I know folks are like, "What does this 8 foot, 7 foot tall iPhone look like?" So we'll definitely get links from John here to put in the description. We're going to save you that Google image search. So
Yeah,
let's
nice.
move on to cyber. Then you got another company called CyberPay, and then you already mentioned Next again. But let's talk about the whys for these two companies and what did they do?
Okay, so Nexogen started. I worked at Best Buy after the restaurant gig. Went back to school. Met my wife. She fixed me, corrected me, got me working properly. Sent me back out in the world, and I was at the Best Buy before the Geek Squad existed, and at Best Buy, when people would come in, we had this thing called the trail. Like, you would bring people in, and then you would educate them on every single thing down loops of hallways, trying to basically get them to buy everything that they
Yeah,
could
like a
potentially
technical
possibly want.
IKEA, they make you walk the whole labyrinth.
Yes. Okay. So I did that for a while, and then was technical. I had like MCSE, CCNA, like Cisco Search and stuff like that. So they brought me to the tech bench, and when I got there, I just was like a tool finder. I'm just like super high energy, so like finding tools and everything, and we're cleaning up PCs all day long. But while we're doing that, it's very kind of monotonous. We have a whiteboard up, and we just kept. I met my business partner. He had a computer engineering degree from Embry-Riddle, and he was like, kept thinking about how inefficient humans were using computers because PCs were like you would use like 1% of your processor if you took the total usage that a consumer would use, and then 99% is available. If anybody could unlock the rest of that potential, then all this massive asset was like available. So we were like, we should build something that charges a customer on a monthly basis. This is 2003, by the way.
Hmm.
Um, Memory, storage, bandwidth, processor, just what they use. So like a utility, and that's pre-cloud. And then we created one with like 12 Pentium 4 boxes, and we built our own little hypervisor, which sucked. And then Citrix over top of it, and we put it in this little town, and that's where Nexogen was born. Was out of that, and we had customers that were paying a fraction because they only had to pay for what they used. And then they eventually just told us, "Hey, would you? I don't understand what you're trying to sell me. You just sell me a server, a backup tape, and like the normal stuff back then." And we just turned into a traditional IT consulting firm.
Hmm.
But we also built websites, we also hosted websites, and we also helped build applications, all this stuff. So we were constantly under attack because back then you had like you didn't have ASA Cisco firewalls. You had I forget what the model number was, like old router, and you had to build in your static NAT rules, and
Hmm.
ACL was just coming out. So
Yeah.
you're like very, very manual procedures to like just block IP. Someone attacked me, you're not allowed to talk to me again. Okay, you attack me, you're not allowed to talk to me. Um, and that all kind of grew up around us. So now Nexogen, that was kind of our why, was like we didn't want to work for someone, and we wanted to create a company that was for people that didn't want to work for someone. So
Good.
our culture has always been like counterculture. It's always been like lots of space, not micromanage, lots of growth, and trying new things, lots of lab type of environment. And people, we get really, our culture has just been like that ever since. Now it's around 85, 88 people, something like that at that one organization. We have a security operations center. We've got a cloud implementation team. We've got a help desk. We've got a network operation team. We've got a DevOps group. We've got all sorts of different things going on. We got our AI research lab where we partner with universities on. So that thing kind of has everything. Now from there, I went to lunch with a guy who wanted to start his own business in payroll back in like 2008 or 9, 10, something like this. And he's like one of the best human beings I'd ever met. And at the meeting, he kind of was in a situation where he probably should do this. Literally, I just helped him convince himself that he should, and he
Okay.
did. And now he's got two businesses that I'm invested in and support him on from a technology standpoint. And he's doing unbelievably well. Gosh, he's doing so, like, he's unbelievable. And that's CyberPay and pay options, which is just growing in the payroll space like crazy.
Awesome. I love
Yep.
that you started off with saying you love to come in and make an impact, make a positive impact. And so far, everything you're telling me is you've made tremendous impacts, especially for that gentleman that has two
Ooh.
great businesses now, the CyberPay and the other one. You're constantly making great impacts, not only for yourself, but those around you and those that cross paths with you. So, man, that's great. You mentioned about an AI lab, and what are some of the focuses with AI? What are some of the, I guess, the challenges or some of the problems, or what are some of the things you're trying to do with your lab?
Okay, so I mean, I'm not the best AI scientist in the world. Like, I'm not Bengio, I'm not Jan LeCun. I'm super curious. I read every single paper I possibly can. I try to understand every mechanism. I try to understand the algorithms. Went back to PhD courses specifically in genetic fuzzy algorithms,
Mhm.
which is explainable AI, which is causal, which is you're basically like billiards. It's not like probabilistic models like deep learning networks. It's like causal, like you know why it occurred because this specific thing happened. If a problem occurs, you can open up the mind, adjust the little neurons, put it back together, and that problem will not happen again. So there's rules associated with it. And you can evolve those rules. So you can kind of evolve these rules. So our research lab is focused really on small models that are more explainable or explainable. And we have built explainable models, many, like many, many, that help us with specific things. One of the models that we built was for phishing detection, specifically on link analysis, just on link analysis. We were able to look at 275,000. This is our own model, our own data. No, like use of like this is no neural net or anything like this. This is our own model, our own algorithms. 275,000 email data set. Think something like 78,000 links in the email, 28,000 known negative links. Local compute CPU, no GPUs. We trained it on a GPU local.
Hmm.
Maybe took like 5 minutes, and then ran it locally. I think it's like seconds, just a couple seconds to go through all those emails and get 99.99995% accuracy.
So it's just opening up just, multiple instances to virtually sandbox all of the links.
Just one instance. We're only
Okay.
looking at, we're basically created a classifier.
Hmm.
That classifier can detect within at 99.9999995% accuracy, explainable on the link analysis. So with genetic fuzzy, what you're doing is or the way we built this model, we went to human experts. We got a data set annotated, labeled, went to human expertise. So the top experts in the world, if they were to look at a link to determine if it was negative or good or bad, they have very specific attributes. We were able to get that down to really just 15. That's it. That's all we needed.
Hmm.
15 attributes of those links. And we could correctly identify those 99.99996% of the time. The thing we are on now is where we're getting real-time data extraction. So we're
Hmm.
extracting live data, which is much more difficult than pre-annotated data. Then from there, we're building out that supply chain across the board. But we have other algorithms that we built specifically around cluster identification with automation. We have a big potentiality of like a million times faster type of thing we came up with. Um, I don't want to like make claims of it, but we've had some pretty cool research. We have some really cool, smart kids, and I call them kids if they're under 40.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but some smart kids that are doing amazing stuff, and then I'm just trying to like come up with creative ideas on how to challenge them. Like they say, "Hey, I did this fast." I'm like, "Can you do it 10 times faster?" It's my first question.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, if you did, how would you? I don't know. Well, can you figure that out, please? Like that kind of thing. And they're really just pushing the envelope specifically on dialing in algorithms or using different algorithms in different areas. Now, we are also working with customers on data transformations, on Copilot with Microsoft, because a lot of our customers use Microsoft,
Hmm.
on defense strategies, on data protection strategies, on continuous identification evaluations, with Microsoft Entra and so forth, and then building agents even on top of that, which are sort of looking for these open claw type action models behaviors and
Hmm.
then developing signals on developing analysis for those types of signaling. So that's I would call them guardian agents,
Hmm.
and then working with suppliers that are in the same area. Now, when I'm exploring that on the research side, what I do, and it's a different technique than I've seen other people do, is I use social media to my advantage. So I take the best papers and I place them with the author's words are on the paper. So I don't put my own analysis like I know more than the author. I put the title, the author in order, and the abstracts, but I tag the authors.
Hmm.
So they are absolutely on the link and then from there I connect to the authors. And then if I have a question about that knowledge, I ask that author directly. And I
Okay.
have around 12,000 AI scientists that I've connected to over the last 3 years, where I can, if the inventor of RAG, I have DM'd him and he's helped me with challenges on RAG, or the inventor of whatever, I have DM'd them and they have helped me with specific questions around that mechanism and explore. And typically they have a company that I now can interact with, and they're a new
Hmm.
supplier that we work with. And that's sort of how I see these new forests growing.
This is a beautiful thing with all of these new startups, particularly in emerging technology spaces, being very helpful and forthcoming. And I'd like to say that it takes big gestures, like when Elon Musk made all those battery patents free and available for his competitors to use. That I think really shifted this. It was a big paradigm shift where we can share knowledge and we can all play in the space. We all have a seat at the table, right? And I think that was and I don't want to just attribute it just to Elon. I know there's other folks in the tech space that done some similar things. But I believe that knowledge sharing and being very helpful, like you said, you've been able to reach out to this big, huge database connected to all these founders and scientists, and they're super helpful because they want everybody to succeed. They want efficiencies to be gained, and they want to keep pushing the envelope of what the technology can do. Now, with that being said, let's address the elephant in the room since we're talking AI because you see it on social media, and a lot of people are afraid that AI is going to take a lot of jobs. Now, I will say that Jensen for NVIDIA had a great talk. There's a great clip of him now circulating social media where he talks about different technology revolutions that they've actually created more jobs because with the efficiencies and companies, generating more profit, they're able to actually explore new avenues, new ways of making money. So he believes that there's going to be actually more jobs created. What are your perspectives and what are the people that you're interfacing with having these discussions about what is the consensus you're hearing about the job market in the future of the growth of AI?
Crazy and all over the place is my first response. And it's a jagged path. And the jagged word to me is what Jensen's saying, I think is correct. And this is so one is mid-market organizations or even up to $10 billion organizations. I'll work with organizations that are 30, 35,000, 40,000 employees. Okay. So a lot of the organizations are worried about giving access to their data to frontier labs. Some organizations just will not do it.
Yeah.
You must have the equipment on premise. It must be with a person that's on premise. They don't even want you to remote in to do work. Very, very high level. Okay. Very, very like strict. If you're using their data to build a model specifically, or you're interfacing with their data, if you're not touching their data, they're like, we don't care. You can do whatever you want out there in marketing or whatever. Now, in some of the use cases that we've worked on, we have seen areas like one of the use cases, I think for a company was like net savings of 50 to $75 million annually.
Wow.
This is known loss. So they knew loss was going to occur around 50 to $75 million annually, and they were writing that off like they could not solve this problem. With automated decision making, highly precise, you now enable those humans to recapture that loss. Now it goes away. That's one. And two, you can now project, so you can do new interesting things on the market. So you can now get these new revenue producing opportunities. A massive turn. If you take all that money and go buy a boat, you are you are not going to win against your competitors. If you take that money and reinvest in those people and reorient them into new areas for expansion, you get that. Okay. Another problem though is the amount of infrastructure that's being built takes away from the capital spent on humans. So when I buy a data center, that is competing directly with me hiring another 1,000 people.
Yeah.
It very much so. So if I'm buying a data center, so Jensen's NVIDIA processors, that infrastructure is taking away from jobs. But once it's up and running and producing, then jobs are being used to are going to extract that value.
Yeah.
So the investment goes there, then it turns around. It's like the market, in my opinion, is like a big atmospheric like environment. So the money flows. So it's in right now this direction. It's paused there because they're having problems with electrical equipment. They're having problems with power. They're having problems with GPU quantity and availability.
Yeah.
And that money's already spent because Jensen didn't say, hey, pay me when I give it to you. He said, pay now when you're in line. And then the other thing he did is they actually, you can jump the line. So if they are able to charge 25% more at a later point, they will come back to you and say, it's now 25% more to keep your space in line, or we will give it to this group who's jumped in front of you. So they are stacking value on these orders like crazy. When they do that, though, you are not hiring as many people. So I would say there's waves coming,
Hmm.
and I would say that looks a little bit like a bubble. That does exist, but it's a wave.
Yeah.
So it's like we're going to have a point where the value's not there. It's going to take a while to get there. But if you we're kind of in this mode, we're just steamrolling through these things. So
Yeah.
I look at it as very complicated, and what I just said doesn't describe it properly.
Well, I usually explain to people there are categories of jobs that will get decimated. I mean, we already seen it a couple years ago with just, I think ChatGPT 4 or 3.5. That there was a company in India that just laid off his whole staff of call center people and replaced it with an AI. So there's certain jobs that have like customer service where there's certain scripts and there's certain options that's available before it has to go to a decision maker. Those jobs I think will be automated with AI. There'll be jobs like booking travel, things that you could do with an AI that functions like a personal assistant, right? those
Yes.
jobs will be automated. Administrative assistants down to secretarial administrative office operations. A lot of things will get decimated in that regard. But what I think it should challenge people to do is, how can I grow up to push myself to take the education now to either learn the tools so I'll be the one person left on the team because I'm the one running and orchestrating all the tools and efficiencies. But you mentioned something earlier about budgets and efficiencies from money being saved by solving problems they've been living with. And I think the key thing is that redistribution of that funding into things like research and development, R&D. A lot of entities exist purely for R&D, but a lot of businesses don't have the luxury of R&D because they're working on the bottom line, which is proving stakeholder value, right? Keeping the price of their stock solid or moving up. But I think what's going to do it may actually spur even further innovation in other industries that have yet to really embrace it. Because if they do gain in efficiency, if like you gave an example, a business was saving 75 million, that's a lot of money to redistribute into ventures or the other R&D efforts to create innovations, maybe create new product sets or new services that you can offer to your customers and grow your revenue stream. So I believe it's going to create a boom, but it might not be immediately evident. And we know that to err
Yeah,
as
it's like a
human, there's going to be
yeah.
some people that are going to misspend that 75 million and, like you said, blow it on a yacht. Who knows? But I think
I don't know.
that the smart people will hopefully prevail, and when they have these efficiencies and this new coffers, the coffers are full from redistributed wealth or budget, they'll be able to appropriately spend it and create new innovation, which will require people to support it, people to help develop it, people to market it. Because even though AI can get you some of the way, you're still going to need people along that chain. Because I also see we're going to have an aversion to where how people used to feel when our calls used to go to like a foreign call center, and a lot of
Sure.
people in America would get upset and like, let me speak to an American or English speaking person. There was a little bit of pushback on things like that. And so anytime there's a change and a disruptive change, there is a little bit of a user acceptance rate that has to go through that has to be navigated a bit.
That's exactly right. Like what's like I look at like the oldest industries that have already been automated. Car washes is a perfect example. They're
Yes.
they're fully automated. However, the best car washes are staffed with people.
Hand wash, yeah. And
Hand wash, and
waxing.
they will take care of every little detail. So
Yeah.
there are premiums and there are all sorts of places for people to fit. Chess people have been bypassed by algorithms a long time ago. I still watch chess all the time. I watch humans. I learn from humans. I rarely use the engines. It's a personal preference. That's why I believe you will have multiple economies. We will have, and I call them temporal intelligence boundaries.
I like
So
that.
our so if you have like the tree behind me works at a speed that I cannot understand or communicate with, and it works at its own intelligence boundary. Humans, we have our own, and we kind of are in the same one as like animals in general. These machines are going to be working at speeds we cannot comprehend or understand why they make decisions that fast. That is
Yep.
a new boundary. Then you will have super ones that go even faster. So I think there will be three, four, five of these boundaries. When that happens, the cycle there'll be, in my opinion, like you're starting to see it with certain subnets in the bit tensor community where they're doing their mining with training.
Hmm.
So they're not only mining, but they're training at the same time, which is creating currencies, creating a value structure, and it's creating a computational value at the same time.
Hmm.
If that happens and transaction starts occurring, that's new wealth production and
Yep.
automation. If that's sci-fi to a degree. Now, if that happens on scale, that creates this layer or boundary that exists, and then a new one can form out of that. You get abstracted away. The question that everybody goes back to that's like deep science, in my opinion, is like, what the heck does value mean?
Yeah.
And
And
I
that's the
think that's
problem
the,
I
the
think
the
we're
betterment of
finding
all.
with the stock market versus, blockchain, and how, we're hearing a lot about tokenization, which is basically NFTs. I'll die on this hill, but non-fungible tokens had got a bad rap because it went the way of digital art, the get rich quick schemes, got the bad
Yes.
rap. But the word they're having to use now, because they don't want to use the word NFTs because of the bad press, is tokenization. And we're going to keep hearing about that because eventually everything will be tokenized. But a part that you just talked about, the intelligence and the different, boundaries or layers or categories. Mo Gadot actually was speaking about how like right now, with the generative AIs, it gives everybody an average of 20 IQ points just off the jump, right? And so he's talking about how like eventually we're going to be peasants to these AI systems because they're going to keep getting more and more intelligent to where they'll be 1,000+ IQ levels, even though you can't really measure that. But I love that idea that what, being augmented by an AI gives you 20+ IQ points, right? Because you're able to do things that research faster. Speed is the name of the game, right? But you're able to access levels of knowledge at PhD level, right? That you normally wouldn't have. And so I love that as being, you mentioned earlier about socioeconomically disadvantaged areas of a city and a town that didn't have internet, right? And now imagine now that almost everybody has internet, whether on a mobile device, a laptop, a computer, or at a public library or school, everybody can get access to the internet. So the internet was a great equalizer. So, but even though it was a great equalizer to access to knowledge and information, the next level is actually raising the IQ points. And I like when Mo talks about that everybody in the world is getting 20+ IQ points from just leveraging an AI. So folks, stop being scared of AI. If you're still watching this right now going, oh, they're not, they're talking nonsense. Play around with it. Take a song you wrote in high school, plug it into one of the AIs, and it'll generate a song for you. It can make storyboards out of poetry. You can write that book you've been talking about writing. Just give it a spin and take an hour. And after an hour you're still not amazed about what its capabilities are, then hey, go back to being in the dark ages and being afraid of it. But you can't put the Pandora back in the box. So John, I know
I agree. I agree
go
with
ahead.
that.
So
I agree with
John,
that. Yeah, that's good.
I want to ask you, this is my favorite question for all my guests. Talk about your day one, the first day. And I know you mentioned you had a lot of different pathways in your career and did different things and ran different companies. But what was your day one story when you said, I want to work with IT and cyber? Is there a story around that? You mentioned your wife was a big motivator, driver for you becoming successful and becoming the best version of yourself. But what is that day one story?
I, I would say it's changed from day to day. It's changed from week to week. It changes from month to month. It's never the same. I can't even ground it on one thing. I've had my own boundaries in my life. When I met my wife, um, she showed me what good looked like in a way that I didn't realize what it was before. She showed me what consistency looked like. She showed me what discipline, what setting self goals was like in a more consistent fashion. She also showed me what living a clean life looked like, and caring about things a little bit more deeply than just surface level. All of that was where she helped me understand, and also she also is an incredible believer on betting on yourself, and she
I
was
like
very
that.
supportive on betting on herself, because we were putting in the work. We were studying together every night. Now the when I got older, you when you're in business, people love to hand you awards. They love to put you on stage. They love to give you a mic, all of that, and they love to hand you a drink afterwards. All of that plays to your psychology. And later in life, I think a midlife crisis, I would call it, like 40s. I went through depression and reemerged from that. I would say a different person than I even was before then. And I would say I also realized at that point when I've been down to like low lows, um, that other people could be going through that when I'm speaking to them and I don't realize that.
Mm,
So I'm way more intentional about what I say and how I say it. And I care about other people's feelings a lot now.
that's awesome.
And it's a big part of who I am. There is a statement. I like Ben Shapiro a lot. My facts don't care
Oh
about your
yeah, yeah,
feelings.
yeah.
I do believe in facts and all those kind of things, but I also believe in caring about the feel, like the empathy side of it. I just do, because I've been through it and I know what it feels like. And I'm like, gosh, and I know you can get through it. So I do work with homeless. My family goes down and
Yeah.
works with homeless every week on Tuesdays, and we do made that. We also work with disadvantaged in Special Olympics. My sister-in-law is special needs, and we made that sort of like staples in our weekly activities. Um, my moment though with AI specifically, I would say, because that kind of permeates everything, was November 2022, was with ChatGPT. I made my first neural net in 2003, but all the way to 2022 November is when ChatGPT came out. I that major impact on me. What's going to happen with me? What's going to happen with my kids? What's going to happen with all the families I support? Are our companies, are they going to be displaced? Are we in bad positions? Do we need to adjust? So we went in all on ourselves, and then we realized the market's going to change. So we said, hey, how do we start a business where if everybody wins and this technology wins, we win?
Hmm.
And that was like, how do we figure that out? We just kept saying that over and over. How do we create something that if everybody does well, we do well? And we created the Enterprise Technology Association for that. We went to MIT, Imagination in Action. We saw them run their event series, and we were thinking about beforehand. And we launched what's called Cincy AI Week, which is a 3-day event in Cincinnati, rapid fire talks, 175 speakers, all sorts of
Wow.
different places in. We had we planned it from ideation inception to launch 5 weeks. 1,000 people showed up.
Wow, that's a
1,000.
great event.
That was 2024, 2025, almost 2,000 plus.
Doubled. Wow.
And then this year will be even bigger. Then we said our idea was the West Coast and East Coast are creating everything. We got to find our communities and get together. So then we did it in Atlanta, just as big. We did it in Nashville AI Week, just as big. We did it Columbus. We did it in Great Lakes, up and near the Great Lakes, just as big. We educated in person last year 15,000 people in AI
Wow.
in person. That was all networking, totally open, very low cost to come and sponsor. Like made it very open and easy transaction. And now Jobs Ohio has jumped on board, and our team that's running that is just accelerating. And they're adding Washington D.C. now. The White House strategic advisors
Right.
have joined. It's been amazing. I don't even know what to do on that. I'm just trying to support those guys and then feed them as much as I can. But that's Zach Hune and Summer Crenshaw.
So my next question, man, that's just impressive. Every time I'm doing it, I'm just cheering you on. I love it. I love everything you just
Thank
said
you.
there. So my next question, and it's kind of think of it as like the Oscar moment. You're not going to have enough time, and you're not going to be able to think of everybody. But along your career and all the businesses that you found and the things that you've worked and people that you've come in touch with, there's got to have been people that had a positive impact on you. You already mentioned your wife, but like, they could be managers, directors, colleagues, coworkers, or just people in an industry that had a positive impact in your journey so far. So the goal of this question is kind of shine a light on those names of those people that had a positive impact on you. And of course, we already know you're not going to have enough time to name everybody. There's
Yeah.
just too many names to name. But are there some people that come to mind when I say, hey, what are some folks that had a great positive impact on you?
I mean, there's people I work with today, and they also are part of some of these new companies. Russ Middleton's one of them. PJ Thelon's the CEO of one of them. Ryan McCullough. Um, Chris Huntington came into NextGen. He's now over doing big things at a Fortune 50 company. Chris Compton, also Fortune 50 company. Kevin Pressler. Couple really big names outside of kind of my sphere. And I'm sure I missed a ton right there, but like my mentors, I would say. There are so many. One of Mike Dom, just watching what Mike's Car Wash does and how they interact and that family interacts, how his family handled generational handoffs and so forth. That guy's absolute one of the best humans I've interacted with. Guy named Ed Reynolds. He is the founder of Eagle Finance and also Kona Ice, which is one of the largest food truck
Oh yeah.
organizations. Um, he is one of the most giving humans I've ever met in my life. The guy gives like I've never seen in my life. He taught me the power of giving. Mike Schlepper, one of the best construction minds I've ever met. Um, my business partner JJ Schaefer, I can't remember my name. He's a mentor, but just so many. Brent
Yeah.
Rippey, I don't know if I've mentioned him on how to form marketplaces, complex ones, custom, and then to set up financial mechanisms to ensure that you're allowing people to opt in a fair way, and then incentivizing people along that strategy where everyone sort of like all the signals work together. Brent Rippey would be like my guy I trust the most in that space. I mean, there's a million.
Wow. Well, thank you for shining a light on those names.
Yep.
So this is a moment of podcast where I like to have what I call my moment of levity, where we kind of take a time out from the tech talk, and it's just some rapid fire questions. I'm gonna fire at you. No right or wrong answer, just whatever pops in your head first. So I'm gonna hit you with the fastball. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
The hot dog is it's a form of sandwich. Yeah.
All right, he says it's a sandwich. All right, another food question: cake or pie?
I'm going with pie.
What kind of pie?
Tomato pie.
Tomato pie. Okay, pizza. I'm assuming you're going with
No,
hot or
that's a
cold.
tomato pie is a little different. It's a
There's
it's
a
a it's a
tomato
southern.
pie.
It's like
Wow,
it's a
wow.
southern thing.
Send me a link to
Yeah.
a recipe for one. But hot or cold tomato pie?
A little warm, a little warm.
Got to be warm. Okay. This one's going to split the room for IT people, okay? Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh my gosh, I've read every single novel of both. Um,
Really? Okay.
I if there's new ones that I've missed, maybe not those, but every subgenre. Star Trek for a completely different reason than Star Wars.
Okay.
Um, I love them both for their own reason. Star Wars is more like quantum physics. Star Trek is more like Einsteinian theory of relativity. It's more like discrete. So
Okay.
I like the both sides, I would
If
say.
they were releasing a Star Wars and Star Trek film on Christmas Day and you could only go see
Star
one.
Wars, Star
Okay,
Wars.
there it is.
All right.
All right, good answer. What has
All right.
been what has been your most favorite book of all time that you've read, and what was the last book that you've read?
The Planet of Games by Ian Banks, the Culture series. I've read the entire Culture series is unbelievable. It used to be Arthur C. Clarke, and then also the Foundation series used to be that. But the Planet of Games by Ian Banks, the Culture series is unbelievable. It's one of the guy is an absolute genius. He's passed away, but unbelievable. The latest book I've read a bunch of really good ones. The latest ones that I've kind of been rereading is there's a Turing Award winner named Judea Pearl. And
Okay.
he created the causal models, like a lot of work in that space. He's at MIT and all these places. He's been on Lex Friedman. Um, he talks about the rungs of causality and
Hmm.
how the universe works in a causal structure. And absolute genius. So, The Book of Why is the name of that book.
Awesome. If you can give me the links to those books, I'd love to have them. So
Oh,
here's
well.
my next question. A lot of us are busy in our day jobs, but we often try to carve out that time. And I think I kind of already know you mentioned some earlier, but we often try to carve out time for volunteer work, charities, nonprofit organizations that are doing tremendously great work in the world. So the goal of this question, is there a nonprofit charity or cause out there, whether you give of your time, energy, or money, that you want to shine a light on? And hey, this organization is doing tremendous work in the world. This is what they do. This is their mission. And of course, give me their socials, and then I'll make sure that they're in the description below.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, a ton. So I'm on the board for the Cincinnati AI Catalyst, which is to help our region transition into the new technology. So I'm on that board, and there are some a guy named Carl Frake is there. I should have mentioned him as a mentor, and Pete Blackshaw, who's got one of the best AI branding sites. Cancer Free Kids, they do cancer research for children that a children's a cancer disease that is not as big, so like small impact, which means that it doesn't get the typical research that it should. So
Yeah.
they fund underfunded programs.
Okay.
Cincinnati Off Road Alliance. So parks exist all over Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Off-Road Alliance is the one that makes them cool. They put them all the trail running courses, all the mountain bike courses, all that they put in, I think 100 plus miles of mountain bike trails across all these parks in Cincinnati and made all of our parks so much more accessible and lively. I could keep going, but those are some big ones.
Well, thank you for sharing
Emergency
those.
Shelter of Northern Kentucky. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing those, and give me the links to all of them and their socials. And look, everything that he gives me, all the URLs, I'm just going to copy paste in the description, folks, because we're going to save you that Google search. All you got to do is pause the video, click the description, and click away. We're coming up on an hour, and I definitely want to respect your time. John, you've been tremendous, just a tremendous guest, and all the great impact that you've had already, and multiple industries as well as the world, and all the people you come in touch with, man. You're a tremendous force of nature as a human being, and so I really appreciate your time today. I'm really coming up to the end of this, but please give me your socials and all the information for people to connect with you and follow the great work you do. But speaking of which, what is on deck for the rest of 2026 for you? Are we going to see you at some conferences, some events? Do you got a book in the works? What are some projects or things that you can share with us? What is your big goals and achievements for 2026?
Be a better dad, be a better husband, and be a better coach and a learner. And then as far as a book, I do it a different way. I put things on LinkedIn that are extremely personal and memoirs on social media completely transparently. I write that for my kids and for anybody, free open research for everybody. On my LinkedIn, I do have a horse face. That's my horse, so it's not my face on my LinkedIn profile. If you look, it's a chess piece. It's a horse piece. But 2026 is we're growing on multiple fronts and multiple companies. So really, I'm just trying to help people stay in a positive mindset during that process challenging themselves, making sure they're getting the rest they needed, and then make sure that
Right.
we're staying healthy and we're cheering each other on. And if someone's down, trying to pick them up.
Awesome. Well, this is the one question that was not on the agenda, and all my guests get caught a little flat-footed by, so he's not prepared, folks. But I know he's going to do well. I give all my guests the final word, and when I mean the final word, you don't have to talk AI, IT, cyber. You could talk anything you want. You just talk about your favorite cuisine, your favorite vacation you ever took, the last time you stubbed your toe, whatever you want to talk about. The floor is yours.
Honestly, I have a question for you.
Okay.
I want to hear about your trip to the quantum lab and some of the research that occurred, and then how you almost saw two of the best quantum computers in the world.
So before we started this recording, I mentioned I did a month-long trip to Japan, and I got to visit a lot of different organization locations. So a lot of those I can't speak to confidentiality and NDAs. But what I can say is I did get to view a quantum circuit in a lab. It was pretty amazing to see it because you see the pictures, you see the videos on YouTube, but until you're there in the room and you start to really be that close to the technology that is going to disrupt every market and industry out there, it's just one of those moments. It was like my technical Grand Canyon, just the enormity of that device in front of you, even though it's not that big, it felt like the Grand Canyon of technology. That's the short description I could give on that. But thank you for actually handing me your final word. But I want to give you the baton one more time because we got a few more minutes. Do you have something you want to talk about?
I would say, yeah, I would say, make sure you're not living your life attached to a screen fully, even though you're working really hard. Make sure that's why I put trees behind me on this podcast for a reason. Get out in nature as much as possible, move your body as much as possible. That helps you in your mind. And then be okay taking care of yourself because you matter and you're probably worth a lot more than you think you are.
Well said. Well, thank you so much for being on the
Uh,
Top Cyber Pro podcast, John.
Thank you so much for having me on.